So good evening, Excellencies, all ladies and gentlemen, particular our host, the High Commissioner. Glad that our colleague Glennis Hannah Martin is able to join us, and of course Ambassador Roll and Mrs. Roll. Our special friends, happy birthday, Mary. And Phyllis, the last time we were in this spot, we were in Bermuda, right? And you were hosting the independence celebrations for the Bahamas and Bermuda. That was last year. Just last year. And to the officers, it is a real pleasure and honor for me to be able to join the High Commissioner in hosting this special event. And you see, my notes are there? Yeah, okay.
You usually don't speak with me.
Yeah, I usually don't, but I wanted to start off though because it always is interesting to me the context within which we sing this national anthem. And the other day I was at the L.W. Young Junior High School, and I looked around and people were singing the national anthem, and I asked the Minister of Sports who was with me whether or not he was born before or after independence. And he was born after independence. He was born in 1974. And it turned out that the only two people in the room, including the principal, the teachers, the students, who were born before independence were myself and Pauline Thompson. That's it. And so what comes home to me again is that people in my position have a responsibility at this point to ensure that the values, the history, and everything that is reposed in us, because Loftus has just died, so there's no longer that person you can go to and say, how did this happen? So we're now the repositories of that. And it's our responsibility to pass all of that on to this next generation, as the High Commissioner was saying, that's coming along. So the police officers who've all worked with me were all introduced to Albert Miller. And I did that for a reason, because I said to them that he is an example of where you can start from humble beginnings and rise through the police ranks and become a successful Bahamian citizen. And I wanted them all to have the experience of meeting him. He was, as a baby, he almost died at 6 months during a hurricane, fell overboard, was rescued on the way back to Long Island with his mom. His mom was in such shock after the hurricane that she died within the year. So he was raised by his older sister. And he told me all the stories of how when he joined the police force, how she would save his money. And one day he was looking in the newspaper and saw a piece of property that he wanted to buy. And she said, do you want to buy the property? And he says, yeah, but how could I do that? I have no money. And she says, well, I've been saving your pay. You give me your money, I give you an allowance, and I've been saving it. So if you want to buy the property, you can do so. The money is here. And to his death, he kept that piece of property. So planning is always very important and looking toward the future. And I want to inspire everybody who's in public service with that lesson. Now, the other lesson about Albert Miller, of course, is that the one thing he wanted to be in life was the Commissioner of Police. And all the money he had and all the success he had after that, he would have given up all of that to become Commissioner of Police for one day. Problem was, there was regime change in 1967, and he was allied with Roy Solomon, who was the police minister under the UBP. In fact, that's how he got to have the job at the Grand Bahama Port Authority, because when Wallace Groves used to come to Nassau, he was the equerry who used to work along with Wallace Groves, and he was close to Roy Solomon and those, and so the rest is history. But he never got that job. And the person who got the job, and we all knew this because, we're related, Glennis Hannah Martin, myself, her father, I grew up calling him Uncle Arthur, but there was a barber shop on Wolf Road called Kingsmen Barber Shop. And everybody used to go there. Pindling, everyone used to get their haircuts there. And it was there that I first heard about the name Salathiel Thompson. So everybody knew that if the PLP took over after 1967, the person who was going to be Commissioner of Police was going to be Salathiel Thompson. And that was clear from that time. So as soon as that took place and the choice of Pindling to become Commissioner of Police was Salathiel Thompson. And then he was succeeded by Gerald Bartlett. And if you remember, those of us who were around, Gerald Bartlett served for a very long time. Pindling was having a problem determining who was going to succeed him. And then Paul Adley became the Minister for the Police. And he decided that in order to be Commissioner of Police, you had to be a lawyer ever after. So I think they turned then to B.K. Barnaby, who had a law degree, had gone to the University of the West Indies and studied, got his LLB. And Barnaby became Commissioner of Police when he was 43 and was there for a long time. And there was a lot of criticism because of the incumbency was so long. And I think our successors tried to resolve that problem by amending the law to take away the tenure of the Commissioner of Police and give them 2 5-year terms, which we ourselves reversed because the Constitution gives a protection to the Commissioner of Police to the age of 65. And so when B.K. Barnaby moved on to another job, he was followed by Paul Farquharson, who later became High Commissioner here. And again, I commended that example to them. And he was followed by Reg Ferguson, and then by Anthony Rowe. Sorry? Ferguson, yeah, Anthony Ferguson, I'm sorry. And then by Paul Rowe, who is now ambassador to the IMO. Yes, I'm sorry, we forgot Greenslade as well, who became High Commissioner here as well. So I'm glad you all know it. Because there's a reason, because people look at those who go before them, and they pattern their behavior by what they see that goes before them. And that's very important to look at those examples. I happen to have had an uncle married to a woman named Ruth, who was my aunt, my father's sister. His name is Wenzel Granger, and he became the Deputy Commissioner of Police. And he'd served in the British Army during the Second World War, so a very strict man. And they tell this story of a rule that civilians were not supposed to drive in police cars, not supposed to be collected in police cars. And one day, his equerry was driving up East Street to the barracks, and it was pouring rain. And Mrs. Granger was walking in the street getting drenched. So the equerry stopped the car, offered Mrs. Granger a ride to the barracks, and he dropped her off. And when Wenzel found out about it, he promptly put the man on a charge. And the man said to him, "But Mr. Granger, your wife is getting wet in the rain." And he said, "Is she a damn civilian?" The rule is the rule. That's the institution that you come from. It's a rule-based institution. And my experience with the public service and the police force in its entirety is becoming a minister of the government in 2002. And the election took place in May. And when we got there, one of the things we immediately had to plan was the independence celebrations for 2002. And what we found is that we didn't have to do anything because the public service had already anticipated the police. They all knew what to do. 2002 was coming, so all you had to do was just step up to the plate. They'd go wherever they said to go. It was all done for you. And one of the campaigns I've been on for the Bahamas as a public figure, as a politician, is this whole question of the efficiency of the public administration. So Michael Manley, I interviewed him after he lost the election in 1980 in Jamaica. And he said to me that one of the reasons why his programs failed was because the public administration sagged beneath the weight of the changes that they were making, just couldn't keep up. So that tells me, or told me, that training is important. And so when the Prime Minister was talking about the future of the police force, the idea was, can we find some opportunities for the people in the middle ranks of the force to get a training opportunity away from Nassau, away from the Bahamas, and exposure to the international community and international standards that would equip them to take up senior roles in the force as time went on. And this, we hope, is the first of the programs to do just that. And from all the reports that have come back from the school, they've been a smashing success and have done a good job in representing us and equipping themselves for the future. So on behalf of the Honorable Prime Minister, I want to express our thanks to them for agreeing to join the course and for doing so well in succeeding in the course. And the obvious thing is, when you get back home, to spread the good news of leadership and the future and planning and efficiency and all those words that will serve the Bahamas well going forward. So I think I've said enough, and only add congratulations again. And where do I do the glass? Oh, all right. So what I'd like you to do is to stand and join me in a toast to these four men and to their future success on the force. Cheers. 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 Cheers.